crayons, please go get something else and get a pen or a pencil. But I am excited to teach you guys, tell you guys a little bit about some recommendations today. And so, quick show of hands, how many guys would love to have more recommendations than you do right now? Quick show of hands. All right. So if your hand's in the air, I want you to make sure that you are paying attention to everything that I go over today. Right now, my goal through today is not to, I want to be able to give you guys a good amount of notes to be able to, for some ideas and things that you can work on. But I want you guys to make sure that you're taking at least one thing. What is the one thing that you can take from my message today and put it in your next demo? Do not try to take 5 or 6 things and throw it in your next demo, right? Take one thing and throw it towards your next demo, right? And then make it 1% better. All right. But one of the, I'm going to go and start sharing my screen here. And we're recording. Yes. Okay. All right. So give me a thumbs up if you see mastering recommendations on your screen. Give me a thumbs up if you see this. Okay, awesome. So for those of you guys who do have camera off, make sure you guys get those fired up when you can to show your engagement, to make sure that I know that you're getting the most out of this message, and the way you get the most out of this message as well. And so, but that's what we're going to be talking about today, guys, is mastering recommendations. This is a big topic for anybody, right? I think anybody on this call can sell Cutco. I have no doubt in my mind that all of you guys can sell Cutco, right? I sold a lot of Cutco when I started. I don't necessarily think it's because I have any special talent. I just think it's because I worked really hard, right? And when you work hard, when you have the best product on the planet, then, those two things really mix well together. So, but anyways, today we're going to talk about getting more recommendations and building your network. And so some of the things that we're going to talk about today are building rapport. We're going to talk about goals, names and uses, the close, and then asking. In every one of these sections, I will be talking about how this is going to affect the end of the demo. This is and how each section affects ultimately recommendations. So I'm not just going to be talking about building rapport and goals and names and uses. I'm going to be talking about how and why this affects the end of your demo. So make sure you're paying attention and getting the most out of and taking notes on each section, right? There's going to be a lot of questions. I'm going to have you guys kind of thinking a lot while I go through this. So the first section we're going to talk about is building rapport. A couple questions that I have for you. I'm going to go through each one of these, right? So one is, how is your customer typically feeling, right, at the end of rapport? Right? Do they feel comfortable? Do they feel good? Are they enjoying this time with you? Or is it the end of rapport because you ran out of things to say? All right, quick show of hands. How many guys, and I want honesty, how many guys have ever been to that place where you stopped building rapport because you just ran out of things to say? How many guys have ever been there? Okay, and a lot of us, and that's normal. It's completely makes sense. Right. And so at the same time, right, if you're you do never want to stop building rapport because you're out of things to say, right? And make sure that your customer at the end of the demo or at the end of rapport is feeling good, right? Also, how long is your rapport? Write that down. On average, how many minutes would you say your rapport lasts? Right? On average, you're going to write that number down. If that number is any less, then I'd say 10 to 15 minutes. It's not good enough. You cannot build rapport and a good enough relationship with somebody in 3.5 minutes. You cannot do that. I don't even think I could do that. Right. So I don't even think Brandon Brown could do that. Right. You guys make sure that you're spending time with your customers and really building that relationship. Right. It's your time to get to know about your customer. Right. If I asked you right now to tell me 4 things about the last customer you just sat down with, ask yourself, would you really be able to tell me? 1, if you can, that means you genuinely care about your customer. 2, that means you spent a long enough time being able to do so, right? So how long is your rapport? Now, the next question I have for you is, who is talking more during your rapport section? Who is talking more during your rapport section, right? Write that down. Is it you or your customer? It should be your customer. Your customer should be talking about 70% of the time. You should be talking about 30% of the time. It's a good way to think about it. You want your customer to be talking a lot about themselves, right? Think about it. If any of you guys were to talk about something that you're really good at, all right? Think about the thing that you have most confidence in and you're the best at. And someone asks you, what are you the best at in life? And I had you talk about that, you'd feel good. You'd feel really good. So with our customers, we want our customers to feel good as well. How do we do that? We get them to talk about themselves. So who's talking more? All right, the last one I have for you is, how many times can you make your customer laugh during this time? This should be a time, you guys, where you're breaking the ice. You're setting the tone, right? Quick show of hands. Have any of you guys ever been on a demo and the customer's like super grumpy? They just kind of don't even necessarily seem like they want to be there. Anyone ever been there? Right? Yeah, that doesn't feel too good, right? But at the same time, it doesn't have to be that way, right? It's up to you whether or not the rest of the demo is going to go on with that tone or whether you're going to do something about it now, right? If you're in my office, you've probably heard the story a lot, but I'll never stop telling it because this is what helps me explain this concept. You guys, there was one time where I went into a demo with this Filipino lady, and she was probably 5'1", and she was just like, "You have 30 minutes and done." And that was what she told me, right? Those are like the only words. Like, I don't even get a hi from this lady. She's like, "You have 30 minutes and then out." Right. And I was like, all right, straight to it. Let's go for it. So I remember talking to my manager. For those of you guys in Pasadena, Ryan Williams was my manager. And I remember going like, "Hey, like, what should I do?" And I remembered every time I used to ask about, not having enough time or whatever it was, he would just say, "Do the demo. If they kick you out, they kick you out." Right. And I remember getting some type of suggestion. I think it's something along the lines of build a lot of rapport. So you guys, I took that 30 minutes and I built rapport. I took that entire 30 minutes and I just built rapport with this lady. I ended up being there for over 2 hours. She ended up buying a homemaker set, a couple other things, ended up giving me over 25 recommendations, and walked out of there, giving me a high five. Right. But when I walked in, it was 30 minutes and out. Right? You decide whether or not the rest of the tone of the demo is going to continue that way, or if you're going to change it. Right? The way I did that, I just stayed curious in who she was. Right? She didn't feel like I was some salesperson. Right? I came in there to actually build a relationship with her. I still talk to that lady this day. Right? I sharpen her knives for her. She wants to reorder. I'm there for her. Right? All those things. Right? So I also made her laugh. Right? How many times can you make a customer laugh during this time? All right, moving on. Goals. The goal section. This is one of the most important parts on how it can affect the end of your demo, because rapport affects the recommendations through them just feeling good with you. Goals is now taking that good feeling and turning it into purpose and turning it into a reason for why you're here. And so the first question I have for you over here is, how much of your life story are you sharing with your customer? How much of your life's story are you sharing with your customer? Do they still see this as just an appointment about kitchen products, or a step you're taking in bettering your life? After goals, do they still see this as just an appointment about kitchen products, or a step you're taking in bettering your life? Right. And I'm going to use myself as an example, and what I used to share with my customers. You guys, I tried to pay my way through school, right? And I wanted to pay my way through school, but unfortunately, I'm not the biggest guy around, right? And I'm not the tallest guy around either, right? And for my position in football, you had to be about 6'5". My best friend is 6'5". I'm not 6'5", right? I got stuck at about 6 feet, right? The doctors told me 6'3". That was a lie. Anyways, I'm not 6'3", right? So with that being said, I had to give up on football, and it was really tough. And I remember sharing this with my customers, and I told them that, I wanted to go to this school that ended up costing $65,000 a year, right? But I didn't want to have my parents pay for that, because I promised them when I was 16 years old that I was going to pay my way through school. And so, Mrs. Jones, that's exactly why I thank you so much for taking the time today and sit down and watch my presentation, because you're helping me take another step and turning that dream of mine that I have into a reality again. Right. And I would connect with what I'm doing here, with what I'm shooting for, and I'd thank them and make that the reason why I'm thanking them. Right. Every time I would do that, they had this like, wow, right? Like, not many people between the ages of 18 and 23 are walking around having that type of long-term vision, with graduating debt-free, with wanting to, work on yourself for the future and opening up doors for yourself down the road. So in your goal section, are you just talking about wanting communication skills? Are you just talking about resume building, experience? Are you talking about what we call that surface level answers? Or are you digging deeper and you're sharing your customer why you are here today and putting a purpose behind what you're doing? So again, do they see this as just an appointment about kitchen products, or a step you are taking in bettering your life? Because when it comes to giving you people to see and giving you recommendations, if they know that this is going to help you with your life as opposed to your next paycheck, that's going to be a lot better for you. Right? So goals, right? And obviously having the authenticity. Don't make anything up. Make sure you're sharing with your customer everything that you want in life. All right. So that's how it affects the end of the demo. The next section is names and uses. Names and uses. Quick show of hands. How many of you guys ever felt you lose your customers' engagement during the section? Right? You lose your customers' engagement during the section, right? And when you're telling them a lot about names and uses. Okay, cool. So a lot of you guys have. For those of you guys who haven't, great. Maybe you got a cool names and use sections. Keep it going. But at the same time, I remember when I started, I used to lose my customers like kind of focus. They wouldn't be as excited during the section because there's a lot of info to give out. Here's this piece, here's this piece, here's this piece, or this piece, so on and so forth. So if that's the case, what are you doing to make it fun? What are you doing to make this fun, right? How smooth are your transitions? Are they smooth? Do you just go from one piece to the next, right? They're not used for cutting, spreading, or serving, but that's why you have our spatula spreader and you're moving on, right? How smooth is it? Are you confident in your transitions? All right. Also, what personal anecdotes and jokes do you tell during this part? There are a lot of jokes about every single piece that we have out there, right? If you want to find some Cutco jokes, I'm not going to get into all that right now, but text your manager right now. Hey, I want some jokes to tell during the names and uses section. Can you help me out? Go and text your manager right now. If you want some jokes to tell during the section to lighten up the mood, to make it fun, text your manager right now. Also, what personal anecdotes do you have? Quick show of hands. What's a personal anecdote? Quick show of hands. What's a personal anecdote? Anyone know? I'm going to call on a manager. I see the managers raising hands. Any other hands? No one else knows what the personal anecdote is? Going once? Going twice? All right, Trey Payment, tell us, what's a personal anecdote?
So you can give an example of one or the definition of what that is?
Definition of what it is.
It's sort of redundant. An anecdote is like a personal account or a story that from your personal experiences. So that's what it is.
Good, right? Exactly, you guys, a personal experience that you have that talks about your belief in the product, right? And so, for example, right, I'll give you guys an example of when I used to give my customers. When I used to talk about the butcher knife, you guys, I always brought up my dad. And customers always loved this story. And so I'll share it with you guys right now. Every time we got to the butcher knife, right? Oh, Mrs. Jones, let me tell you about this one. I remember when I first started selling Cutco, Mrs. Jones, and you know, my dad had gotten a lot of Cutco at the time. One of the knives he had actually got when he first got his Cutco was the butcher knife. And, you know, just to tell you a little about my dad, Mrs. Jones, my dad's a very stereotypical Chinese father. Right? His face is the same when he's happy, angry, sad. He shows no emotion, says 3 words a day. And I think he likes the dog better than he likes me. That's my dad. Right. And so I was upstairs in my room one day, I'm doing my homework and I get a text from my dad and he just goes, "Hey, Ben, come downstairs." When I get texts like that from my dad, I screwed up and I'm about to hear about it and I'm about to get in trouble. I don't know what it was, but I am kind of like, you know, kind of slowly going on the stairs and not really too sure what it's going to be. But I get in the kitchen. I'm like, "Dad, what's up?" He looks at me from across the kitchen and he goes, "Ben, come try this out." Like, this is nuts. And I'm like, that's weird. My dad seems excited. That's never really something I've ever seen. So I walk over to him and he's cutting this big old tri-tip. He's cutting raw tri-tip. He's got the butcher knife out and he goes, "Here, just take this and like cut a slice of the tri-tip." So I took the knife and I put it on the meat and then I looked back at my dad. I'm like, "Just cut a slice." And he goes, "Yeah." And I looked back and the knife was already halfway down the meat before I had even started pushing. And I looked back at my dad and he was like, "Yeah, that's got to be the best knife I've ever used in my entire life." It took me 19 years of my life to figure out something that my dad would be excited about. And little I know is the butcher knife. And I would tell this story, you guys, every single time. And my customers loved it. Why? Because I was putting my personal side of things and my belief system and what I've experienced into the product. Especially in a virtual setting, it's so much more important to do that. What are your stories that you've had? What are some funny stories you guys have with Cutco already? Right? And so make sure that you guys are using some of those, right? So if you use these, you're personalizing everything. You're making it enjoyable. You're making it funny. They're enjoying the process. You don't get recommendations unless they enjoy the process. This is the way you do that. So names and uses. Next is the close. How many of you guys have felt that a little bit of tension between you and your customer during the close? How many of you guys have ever felt a little bit of tension between you and your customer during the close because you're having to follow the script, you're having to ask them if they want to buy, right? And so on and so forth, right? And so I think we've all been there, right? Especially when you first get started and you kind of have like, "Oh, I don't want to do that," right? It totally makes sense. I don't want any of you guys in here to pressure your customers. That's not fun. We don't have to anyways. It's Cutco. Cutco does this thing. If they don't buy Cutco, it's honestly worse for them than it is for us. All right. But anyways, during the close, there's a couple of things that you can do and a couple of questions that I have here. First is, how are you handling objections mentally? How are you handling objections mentally? When you hear no, are in your head, are you going, oh, I suck, I hate this, I just want to get off, this is terrible? Are you just beating yourself up and getting all down? Or are you going, oh man, that's okay, because I still got recommendations, so I got to hype myself up right now for recommendations, right? How are you doing handling objections mentally? I think everyone can handle an objection out loud with your customer, that's fine. But if you're getting down on yourself, it doesn't matter what you say, it's going to come across that way, right? You never want to come across down, right, or sad to your customer, right? So how are you handling objections mentally? How does your customer feel when you're done closing? Do they feel like you didn't really understand them and you weren't really listening to them and you just continue to go on? Or did they feel heard and understood and validated and good and happy, right? Whether they bought something or not. So if you ever get to the end of the close, this is one of the biggest tips that I've been able to give representatives to help you not, create that tension with your customer if you feel like it might come. Hey, Mrs. Jones, I completely understand you aren't interested today. I do want to get some good practice, so I'm going to continue through some of our other, and smaller products that we have. You can totally keep telling me no if you like, but if you see something you like, you can just let me know. All right. So that way you're letting your customer know, like, hey, I completely understand you, and it makes sense. You make them feel heard. You validate their feelings, but like, hey, I'm just gonna keep going because I need practice. And like, but if you see, you can totally keep telling me no, right? But if you see something, like, let me know too. Now your customer has a great understanding on that, they feel heard and understood, that you understand them, but also to know, like, this is just for your practice. And now they're there for you to give you feedback and to practice. They're not focused on like, oh man, how do I figure out another way to say no? How do I figure out a way to get out of this and say later? Right? No, they don't have to do that. And then they're more open-minded. So if they do see something they like, well, then they might be more open-minded to it because you were open-minded to their feelings. All right. So now that's the close. Take a picture of it if you're still writing down, and I can always come back to this stuff later if you guys need it. Because the last thing that I want to go over is asking, right? Asking for recommendations, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, write a number down right now. How well do you know your recommendation approach? 10 meaning you know it word for word and it's memorized. 1 being I really haven't really followed the script very much. I don't really know it too well. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you know your recommendation approach? This is one of the most important parts of the demo to bring confidence. How much confidence are you bringing? Or are you sounding very monotone? Are you still sounding like you're reading during this part? Do you follow the scripts? Do you follow the programs that we have set in motion for you? Or are you doing your own thing and not getting any recommendations? Right? Do you use the objections available to you? Right? Just like when you're selling, you can hit the objections tab in the top right. You can do the same thing for recommendations. Right? Are you following the objections? Are you reading them? I remember talking to Christian Massel earlier today, and he read one. He's like, yeah, I probably should have said that. Right? And I was like, yeah, they're there for you. Right? And so it's a great example, right? Those are scripts that have been made by people who are crushing in the company. Right? Now, a couple things after that, right? When it comes to just asking for recommendations, at this point in time, you guys, to recap on the things that we've talked about, you've built rapport. You've built rapport with your customer to the point where they feel really good. The tone of the demo is good. They feel like the relationship with you is good. You tell them your goals, and you connect this appointment with the betterment of your life and how they're helping you today take a step forward in opening doors for you and for the rest of your life. That's what the goals. During names and uses, they had fun. They learned a lot about Cutco. You added some of your personal stories. They really appreciated that. They had a lot of fun. Then you got to the close. The close was easy, right? They didn't feel pressured. They felt good. They enjoyed seeing all of our different sets and all of our products. You made them feel validated and understood. At this point in time, you guys, how is your customer feeling? Everyone go to the chat box. If you've accomplished all of these things, type in one word. How is your customer feeling right now? How is your customer feeling right now at this point in time? Got good, happy, awesome, positive. All great words. Good, comfortable, right? Special, energetic, great, right? All these things are good. We want our appreciated. We want our customers to feel all of those things. And all of the things that we just went over help our customers understand that and feel those things. Again, customers don't give us recommendations because they have to. They give them to us because they want to. And if they have all of those feelings and then you ask for recommendations, it's a no-brainer. Of course they're going to want to help you. Right? I challenge you to get to the point where you don't even have to ask. My best demo ever, I didn't even ask. They just gave me 72 recommendations and that was the end of it. It was amazing. And the only reason she stopped was because I was already late to my next appointment. All right. So you guys, when it comes to asking, right, you do those things and the recommendation approach should be easy. There should be no tension when you ask, right? But at the same time, you set yourself up the right way and they should enjoy this appointment. But now I'm going to give you guys a question here that I give every time I teach recommendations. This was the question that changed my entire representative career, allowed me to get thousands of recommendations and help me take my game to the next level. And I'm just going to give credit to him now, Danny Garrido, the CSP, right? My favorite CSP in the LA division. He has taught me the most. He is absolutely amazing. If you ever get the chance to hear from him, which you will this summer, he's the one who taught me to sell signature sets, but also taught me to get recommendations through this question that I'm going to talk to you guys about right here. You've spent the past 45 minutes to an hour or so learning about who your customer is, enjoying that time, enjoying the appointment with them before you ask for recommendations. So Mrs. Jones, you're obviously a very successful person. You have accomplished having, 3 kids, 2 of them are middle school, one's about to graduate high school, right? You have this beautiful home in Westlake Village that, looks absolutely amazing, right? Your husband's a successful doctor and has been a doctor for, what did you say, 32 years, right? Mrs. Jones, that's amazing. And you're clearly someone I would love to be like one day. So if you had any advice for someone like me to become someone like you, what would you say? I promise you right now, your customer melts all over the place when you ask this question. It's amazing the reaction that you get. Because I want to explain what this question does. It sets your customer up to give you the best advice that they know how to give in all of their years of living. I've gotten some amazing advice from asking this question from very, very successful people. But when they give advice to you guys, what are they doing for you? Go to the chat box. When a customer gives you advice, what are they doing for you? I want someone to say it. When a customer gives you advice, what are they already doing for you? Helping. They're already helping you grow. Exactly. When your customer gives you recommendations, what are they doing? Helping. Exactly. They're helping you, right? You're getting them in that mindset, in that feeling, in that mode. They've melted all over the place. They respect you so much because you're such an honest person. You've shown that you want to do well in life. You've made them feel good throughout the entire appointment. At this point in time, you ask them for the best advice they could give you because you look up to them that much on this appointment. And now when you ask for recommendations, you guys, if you get any less than 10, like maybe your customer must live under a rock because there's just no way. There's absolutely no way. And when I started asking this question, this is what helped me average 20 to 40 recommendations on a demo. And this isn't even with the app. This is writing it down. I can't even imagine the possibilities that I would have had if I had the app when they could just select and send. It would have been nuts. I had to write down all the names, numbers, where they lived, how they're related to them, all that stuff. All right. So you guys, you take these things. And like I told you, there was a lot of good things in this that I was giving you tonight. A lot of keys that I've paid attention to when I've sold. I don't want you to take all of it and throw it into your next demo. I want you to take one thing. And what's that one thing that's going to help you improve your demo section or improve your recommendations? All right. And make sure you're talking to your manager. Hey, after Ben's talk, I implemented this and this is how it went. What do you think? Don't only implement it, but talk to your manager about how you're implementing it, how it's going. Tell your manager you want to get better at this because I just gave you the blueprint to get as many recommendations as you want. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys is a document that I've started to make. And I've put some objections on here. And what I'm going to do is I want you guys all to send to your manager maybe some other some objections that you guys get to recommendations. And I'm going to go ahead and put them on here. But I've put a couple of my favorite ones on here that I'm going to share with all of you guys. I think if I actually just go like this and hit copy, that you guys will get it. Let's see. Hopefully, if you guys click on that, you guys will join me here. And you guys can have access to that. Let's see. Does it say access denied when you click on it? Oh, nope. I see you guys popping in. There you go. It works. All right. So here's some couple ones that I'm going to just kind of end on. Right. So how many of you guys have ever heard your customer say, you know, I don't feel comfortable giving out my friends' names, numbers, people they don't know, or I actually want to call them first and let them know? How many of you guys have ever heard that? Okay. If you've done a demo, and a lot of demos, you're going to hear this at some point, right? So, or something along the lines of it, right? Hey, no worries. I totally understand, because I wouldn't want to randomly call anyone like a telemarketer, which is kind of what they think is going to happen when they do give you recs. I actually was going to ask you to reach out to your friends first to give them a heads up before I contact them. There's a super short text message that you can send to your friends to let them know that I'll be calling. If for any reason they let you know they don't want me to call, let me know and I'll delete them off my list. But this way, I'm able to show my manager that I'm working hard. I'm able to keep setting up appointments and fill up my schedule. So if you could only give me 5 names of really nice people who'd be able to just take a look and don't need to buy anything, I'd really appreciate it. Who do you think we could add first? You guys, I said this every single time. This is one of the biggest recommendation objections that I ever got, and this is exactly what I said every single time. And it would allow me to get somewhere between 10 and 20 at least, especially after completing all those other things. Right down here, I have, hey, let me give them to you later. This is one of the biggest issues with people, especially in Ventura. I can't speak for any other offices, but a lot of the representatives in Ventura, at least, like to get recommendations later and then end up not even getting them. So if that happens, here's something for you to say as well. Mrs. Jones, thank you so much for wanting me to help out. It really means a lot to me. As you know, life can get super busy, and I'd hate to have to call you while you're at work or with family and friends. Plus, without recommendations, I can't show my manager that I'm working hard to hit my goals. Is there any way you can squeeze out 2 to 3 really nice people and send the rest later? It would only take a few minutes, and it'd mean the world to me. All right, so here's some things that I would personally exactly respond with on every single demo that has already allowed me to get a lot of recommendations. So what you guys can do now is send your manager a couple other objections that you hear on demos, and I would be more than happy to go in there and add that to that and add my script for what I believe would be the best thing to say for that. And I'd even work with some of the other managers to make that happen. So you guys can have access to this entire thing. All right, I put that link there in the chat box for you. Put that up next to your demo. Get ready to use that. I'll put as many in there as I can for you guys. Send that to your manager and I'll be happy to work on that. At the same time though, if you guys got something that you can put in your next demo, I want you to go and put in the chat box me. Go put the word me in the chat box. If you got something that you can put in your next demo that you're excited to, that you took something away from this presentation that you're going to be able to use, put the word me in the chat box. Awesome, you guys. Awesome. Well, hey, this entire division should now explode because I know all of you guys can sell Cutco. But let's get on our high horses here and let's get some more people to show Cutco too. So let's get ourselves on a bigger scale to go and impact more customers, put more smile on people's faces, but ultimately better your life here in Vector and with what it is that we do. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it back over to Kevin. I appreciate you guys for allowing me to give you some value tonight.